Flashing lights sliced through the dense fog. A young officer, hand on her weapon, faced the stoic tomb guard. "Move the hearse," she ordered. But the sergeant wasn't just escorting a casket. He was keeping a sacred promise. The air on the Colorado mountain pass was thin and sharp, smelling of pine needles and damp earth after an early autumn rain. A thick fog clung to the golden aspen trees, muffling the world in a blanket of gray silence. Through this ethereal landscape, a procession of polished black vehicles moved with solemn purpose. At its head was a hearse, its chrome accents gleaming softly in the diffuse light. Inside, draped in the vibrant red, white, and blue of the American flag, lay the casket of Private Leo Nash. Leading the escort from the front passenger seat of the hearse was Sergeant Caleb Voss, the sentinel at the tomb of the unknown soldier. At 30, his face was already etched with a seriousness that belied his years, his jaw set like granite. His uniform was a masterpiece of military precision. The army dress blues tailored to perfection, the creases on his trousers as sharp as a blade. His Corcoran boots were polished to a mirror shine, and his white gloves were immaculate. Every detail was a testament to the unwavering discipline of his post. But beneath the stoic exterior, a heavy promise pressed down on his soul, a vow made under the vast, star-dusted sky of Afghanistan. The convoy rounded a sharp bend, and the quiet reverence was shattered. A county sheriff's cruiser was parked diagonally across the Tulane Road, its red and blue lights pulsing silently, rhythmically painting the fog in stark, urgent colors. Standing in the middle of the asphalt was a lone officer, her posture rigid, one hand raised in an unmistakable command to halt. Officer Maya Evans stood her ground as the hearse glided to a stop just feet from her. Her tactical vest was cinched tight over her uniform, the name Evans stitched in white thread above her badge. She was young, her expression a mixture of professional resolve and the slight unease of confronting the unknown. Caleb stepped out of the hearse, his boots making a crisp, authoritative sound on the wet pavement. The sudden chill in the air did nothing to alter his composure. He moved with a deliberate grace, each step measured, a living embodiment of the tomb he guarded. "Sir, you need to pull over," Maya said, her voice firm, cutting through the low hum of the idling engines. "There's a multi-car pileup about a mile ahead. This road is closed indefinitely. You'll have to take the detour down Ridge Road." Caleb's gaze was direct, his blue eyes as clear and cold as the mountain air. "Officer, this is a military funeral procession for Private Leo Nash of the United States Army. We are en route to Arlington National Cemetery. We will not be taking a detour." His tone was not argumentative. It was a statement of fact, as unchangeable as the mountains around them. Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. She was used to giving orders and having them followed, especially on her stretch of highway. "I understand, Sergeant, but I have my orders. Ridge Road will get you to the interstate. It's a bit winding, but it'll get you there. Private Nash's final journey will be conducted with full honors, via the primary, pre-approved route," Caleb stated, his voice dropping a decibel, yet gaining intensity. "This is a matter of honor, not convenience. We are proceeding as planned." A flicker of impatience crossed Maya's face. "Look, Sergeant, I've got a job to do. That wreck has traffic backed up for miles, and emergency services need this route clear. You're holding things up." Caleb's posture remained ramrod straight. He didn't raise his voice, but his words carried an immense weight. Private Nash gave his life for this country. He earned the right to be brought home with dignity, not rerouted down a back road like common cargo. The words hung in the air, a quiet but powerful indictment. The standoff had begun. The fog swirled around them, two figures in uniform, locked in a battle of duty versus honor. Tucked inside the second vehicle of the convoy, a black sedan, Eleanor Nash watched the confrontation through the condensation-streaked window. Her hands, trembling slightly, were clasped tightly in her lap. Grief had carved new lines onto her face, but her spine was straight, her dignity a fragile shield against the world's harshness. Beside her, her 12-year-old son, Sam, sat in silence. His small fingers were wrapped around a worn leather baseball, its stitches frayed from years of use. The ball was the last thing his older brother, Leo, had given him before his final deployment. It smelled faintly of dust and glove oil, a tangible piece of the hero he worshipped. "Is that policeman going to let Leo pass, Mom?" Sam asked, his voice small and tight, breaking the somber quiet inside the car. Eleanor reached over and placed a hand on his shoulder. "They will, honey. Your brother is coming home." But her eyes, fixed on Caleb's unyielding silhouette, betrayed a flicker of doubt. Caleb's mind, for a fleeting moment, drifted away from the misty Colorado road. It traveled thousands of miles and a few years back to a dusty, makeshift base in the heart of Afghanistan. The night was clear, the sky a breathtaking canopy of stars, so bright they felt close enough to touch. He and Leo were lying on their cots, the day's oppressive heat finally giving way to a cool desert breeze. Leo, ever the dreamer, was staring up at the cosmos. "You ever think about what's waiting for us, Cal?" he'd asked, his voice unusually subdued. "I mean, really think about it? After all this noise is over." Caleb, the pragmatist, had grunted. "Try not to. One day at a time. Keeps the head straight." Leo had chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that always seemed to cut through the tension. He turned on his side to face Caleb. "That's why you're my compass, man. I'm the guy who charges the hill. You're the one who makes sure it's the right hill." He grew serious then, his eyes catching starlight. "Hey, if I don't make it back, if something happens, promise me something." Caleb had sat up, sensing the shift. "What is it?" "Bring me home proper, Cal. Main roads. Full honors. Don't let them stick me on some back road like I don't matter. Make sure they know I was here." He had tossed a baseball, the very one Sam now held, from one hand to the other. "Make sure my little brother knows his big brother came home a hero." That promise, sealed with a handshake under a foreign sky, now echoed in Caleb's ears. It had become a sacred duty 3 weeks ago when the news came. Leo's unit was on a classified mission in Syria. An ambush. Leo had shoved 2 members of his team into a ditch, taking the brunt of a grenade blast himself. He'd saved them, but at the ultimate cost. The memory was a fresh, searing wound. Now, standing on this cold pavement, Caleb felt the full weight of that promise. This wasn't just about military protocol. This was personal. This was for Leo. He focused back on Officer Evans, his resolve hardening into something unbreakable. He would not fail his brother. He would bring him home the right way. The silent, pulsing lights of the police cruiser and the stoic sight of the military procession began to draw attention. A small cluster of people emerged from the fog, their curiosity piqued. A weathered pickup truck pulled over, its engine rumbling. From a nearby diner, a few patrons stepped outside, coffee mugs in hand. Among them was a man named Mr. Peterson, an elderly gentleman whose stooped shoulders were offset by the proud declaration on his faded green cap, Vietnam veteran. He leaned heavily on a wooden cane, his eyes sharp and discerning, taking in the entire scene. "That's a tomb guard," he muttered, his voice raspy with age, to Chloe, a young waitress from the diner who stood beside him, phone half raised as if to record. "And what?" she asked, lowering her phone, her interest shifting from the spectacle to the old man's words. "A sentinel, from the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington," Mr. Peterson explained, his gaze fixed on the razor-sharp creases of Caleb's uniform. "They're the best of the best. 21 steps. A 21-second pause. They don't break their routine for blizzards or hurricanes. And they sure as hell don't break it for a traffic jam." His words carried a deep, ingrained reverence that made Chloe look at Caleb with newfound respect. From the cab of the pickup, a burly truck driver with a thick beard, who went by Big John, leaned out his window. "That's a soldier's funeral," he stated gruffly to no one in particular. "What's the holdup? Show some damn respect." Back at the impasse, Maya's radio crackled to life, her supervisor's impatient voice cutting through the static. "Evans, what's the status? I need that road cleared 5 minutes ago." "I'm working on it, sir," she replied, her voice tight with frustration. She felt the weight of the growing number of eyes on her. The situation was escalating from a simple traffic stop into a public affair. Caleb stood as still as a statue, his presence alone a form of pressure. "Officer Evans," he said, his voice calm and measured, "this procession is operating under the authority of the Department of the Army. We have a federally mandated right-of-way. We will proceed." Maya's jaw tightened. The law was her domain. "I don't care if you have an order from the president himself. I have a pileup 2 miles up this mountain, and you are obstructing access for emergency services. Now, take the detour, or I will be forced to call for backup and have this vehicle impounded." It was a threat, and they both knew it, but her voice lacked the conviction she intended. Mr. Peterson, hearing this, took a slow, deliberate step forward, his cane thumping softly on the asphalt. "Officer," he called out, his voice surprisingly strong. "I served in '68. I watched boys younger than you die for that flag on that casket. That man in the uniform is doing his sacred duty. You should be helping him, not hindering him." Chloe nodded in agreement, her earlier intention to film forgotten. "He's right. That's somebody's son in there." Big John shut off his truck's engine with a decisive roar and crossed his massive arms. "Let him through, lady. Just ain't right to stop a hero's ride home." The murmurs of the small crowd swelled into a chorus of quiet support for Caleb. They weren't an angry mob, but a jury of peers, their collective presence shifting the moral balance of the standoff. Maya felt a bead of sweat trickle down her temple. This was no longer about a traffic ordinance. It was about something far bigger, and she was on the wrong side of it. The static-laced voice from Maya's radio crackled again, this time sharp and devoid of any remaining patience. "Evans, this is your final warning. Clear that road now. I am dispatching backup. You have 2 minutes before they get there." The ultimatum hung in the cold, damp air. Maya's training, her instincts, everything screamed at her to follow the order. Her hand hovered over her radio to acknowledge, but she hesitated. Her gaze flickered from Caleb's resolute face to the hearse, and then to the small, solemn crowd that had become a silent testament. Sensing her internal conflict, Caleb's approach shifted. The stoic Sentinel facade softened, revealing the man beneath. His voice, though still steady, was now imbued with a raw, personal plea. "Officer, please. Leo wasn't just a soldier I'm escorting. He was my brother. He saved my life." For a brief, searing moment, the misty roadside dissolved, and Caleb was back in the Syrian dust. The world was a cacophony of gunfire and shouting. An explosion erupted nearby, and through the smoke he saw the glint of a grenade landing just feet away. Time slowed. Then, a blur of motion. Leo's body slammed into his, tackling him to the ground, shielding him with his own. The world went white with a deafening roar. When the dust settled, Leo was above him, grinning through a mask of grime and blood. "Got your back, Cal," he coughed. The memory, visceral and immediate, brought a new urgency to Caleb's voice. "I made him a promise. I can't break it. I won't." As if on cue, the rear car door opened. Leo Nash stepped out, her movements graceful despite her grief. Sam followed, his small hand clutching hers, the worn baseball held tight against his chest like a shield. She walked slowly towards Maya, her eyes not accusatory, but filled with a mother's profound sorrow. "My son, Leo, he loved this country," Eleanor said, her voice quiet but carrying clearly in the hushed air. "He joined the army because he believed in protecting people. People like you. He died saving a squad. All I'm asking is that you let us take him home with the honor he deserves." Sam, emboldened by his mother's courage, stepped forward. He held up the baseball for Maya to see. It's leather-scarred and stained. "He was my hero," the boy said, his voice cracking on the last word, a single tear tracing a path down his cold cheek. That was the moment everything shattered for Maya. The boy's tear, the mother's plea, the worn baseball, it all coalesced into an emotional force she couldn't withstand. Her own father was a retired state trooper, forced into early retirement by an on-the-job injury. He was a man of rules, of order, of the unbending letter of the law. He had taught her that duty was black and white. But this This was a world of gray she had never been prepared for. The rules on her book seemed so small, so insignificant, in the face of this family sacrifice. Her hand dropped from her radio. Her shoulders slumped, the rigid posture of authority dissolving into something human. She looked at Caleb, and for the first time, she truly saw him. Not as an obstacle, but as a man bound by a sacred oath. Just as Maya opened her mouth to speak, a new sound cut through the tense atmosphere. It was the quiet hum of a high-end engine. A sleek black government sedan, its plates indicating federal authority, glided past the line of cars and pulled to a stop. The vehicle was so clean and silent, it seemed to absorb the light and sound around it. The rear door opened with a soft, decisive click. A tall, imposing figure emerged. Colonel Marcus Thorne stepped onto the pavement, his uniform even more decorated and immaculate than Caleb's. His silver hair was cut short, and his presence radiated an aura of absolute, unquestionable command. He was Caleb and Leo's former commanding officer, a man who had written too many letters to families like the Nashes. He didn't rush. He walked with a steady, measured pace directly toward the standoff, his gaze sweeping over the scene, assessing it in an instant. "Officer Evans," he said, his voice calm, but carrying the unmistakable resonance of authority. He knew her name without asking. "I am Colonel Marcus Thorne, United States Army." Maya instinctively straightened up, her training kicking back in. "Sir, I have this road closed due to a major accident ahead. This procession is refusing to take the designated detour." Colonel Thorne gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "I'm aware of the accident, officer. I'm also aware of your orders. However, this funeral procession is operating under a direct mandate from the Department of Defense. It has priority over local and state traffic ordinances. It will not be diverted." He spoke with a finality that left no room for argument. He then turned his attention to Caleb, and the hard lines of his face softened with a deep, paternal respect. "Sergeant Voss, you are upholding the highest traditions of the service and honoring your promise to a fallen hero. You've done right by him. Carry on." "Yes, sir," Caleb replied, a wave of profound relief washing over him. He gave a sharp, respectful nod. Colonel Thorne's gaze shifted back to Maya. It was not unkind, but it was firm. "You have performed your duty, officer. Now, let us perform ours." Maya felt the immense weight lift from her shoulders. She had been given a way out, an order that superseded her own. She stepped back, moving to the side of the road, and raised her hand not to halt, but in a slow, deliberate salute. It was a gesture of surrender, of apology, and of profound respect. "Go ahead, Sergeant," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Caleb met her eyes for a moment, a silent understanding passing between them. He gave a single, grateful nod before turning and getting back into the hearse. With a low rumble, the engine of the hearse came to life. The convoy began to roll forward, slowly, majestically. As it passed, the crowd of onlookers parted, forming a makeshift honor guard. Mr. Peterson held his veteran's cap over his heart. Big John placed a hand on his chest. Chloe wiped a tear from her eye. They stood in silent tribute as the hearse carrying the flag-draped casket of Private Leo Nash continued its journey home, down the main road, with full honors. The rest of the journey to Arlington was solemn and unimpeded. The autumn sun finally broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the rolling hills as the convoy entered the hallowed grounds of the National Cemetery. The air here was different, hushed, reverent, heavy with the weight of history and sacrifice. The ceremony was a portrait of dignified grief. An honor guard, their movements precise and flawless, carried Leo's casket to its final resting place. The sharp crack of the rifle salute echoed across the green expanse, each shot a punctuation mark in a life given for others. A lone bugler played taps, the mournful, pure notes seeming to hang in the air, a final, heartbreaking lullaby. Eleanor Nash stood with a strength that seemed impossible, her hand resting on Sam's shoulder. When the honor guard folded the flag with meticulous care and presented it to her, she accepted it with a quiet nod, her face a mask of sorrow and pride. Then, Sam stepped forward. He clutched the worn baseball in his hand for a moment longer before gently placing it atop the polished wood of the casket. "Fly high, Leo," he whispered, his voice clear in the stillness. It was his final act of letting go. From a distance, parked just outside the cemetery gates, Maya Evans watched the proceedings. She hadn't followed the convoy, but had felt compelled to drive there on her own. The events on the mountain pass had unsettled something deep within her. The rules, the regulations, the clear lines of her job, they all seemed blurry now. She thought of her father, the retired trooper who had taught her that the law was an inflexible shield. For the first time, she wondered if he had ever faced a moment where honor demanded the shield be lowered. That evening, she called him, not to talk about her day, but to ask him to tell her stories about his. For the first time, she truly listened. Weeks later, Caleb Voss stood his post at the tomb of the unknown soldier. The moon cast a pale, ethereal glow on the white marble plaza. His movements were perfect, a flawless, living clockwork of devotion. 21 steps. Turn. Face the tomb for 21 seconds. Turn again. 21 steps back. Each step was for the unknowns. But tonight, they were also for Leo. With every precise click of his heels on the stone, he was reaffirming his promise. He was a guardian of memory, a keeper of honor. The wind whispered across the plaza, carrying with it the silent stories of the heroes buried all around him. It was a reminder that while soldiers may fall, the promises made to them, the honor they are owed, must stand unwavering against the relentless march of time. The story of that misty morning in Colorado became a quiet legend, a reminder that true duty isn't always found in a rulebook. It lives in the heart that honors sacrifice, in the courage to stand for what is right, and in the simple, profound act of bringing a hero home. If this story touched you, share it to honor the legacy of heroes like Leo. In a world that moves so fast, it's on us to remember the price of our freedom. Let us know in the comments what honor and sacrifice mean to you. And please, always comment with respect for the fallen and their families. Subscribe to join us in keeping their stories alive.